You're listening to Bottomshelf Bitcoin, episode 13.
Relax. Enjoy your coffee. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Take a chill pill. Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bottomshelf Bitcoin, the podcast that puts Bitcoin knowledge within everyone's reach. As always, I'm your host, Josh Humphrey, and today my special guest is Nicolas Dorier. He is working on a project called BTCPay. It is a Bitcoin payment processor, and we are going to go ahead and rather than me trying to explain it, I'm just going to go ahead and let him jump in and kind of give us some background on this and why this is actually kind of a big deal for us in Bitcoin. So without further ado, Nicolas, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks.
So kind of before we get into BTCPay, why don't you give us your background and kind of what you do outside of this and kind of what you were doing before Bitcoin?
So before Bitcoin, I was basically Microsoft certified trainers. So basically I was going to companies teaching them how to code into C# until I found out Bitcoin and it became my first priority. Currently I'm working for Metaco, which is a company in Switzerland. We raised money like last week. So there was a press release on this, but we are doing secure solution for banks so that they can integrate cryptocurrencies directly into their infrastructure. So it's around what I'm working. I'm also working with DigiLab in Japan, which is a kind of research team that work around on top of Bitcoin stuff. So it's very wide, and we try also to bring more Bitcoin developers by organizing some conference in Japan, like for example BC2. So like 100 developers came, and we were teaching them how to like getting started to code on top of Bitcoin or with Bitcoin Core. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing when I'm not working on BTCPay.
All right. Well, yeah, you, I don't think you ever sleep. I have a theory.
Well, so the thing is that, I get energy from coding in C#, so like no sleep is needed.
Oh, okay. Very good. Yeah. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but I've kind of been following in the Slack channel for BTCPay, and you're always on, you're always working. So,
It's
right.
I'm very passionate about this project, so it doesn't feel like work.
Well, very cool, very cool. Go ahead, kind of tell us about BTCPay and why this project got started and why this is a big deal.
Okay, so last year there was Bitpay and several other big companies in the crypto space that tried to do a hard fork. We call that B2X in the community. And it has been quite a shock for me. I was somebody that was really trying to push BitPay to some merchants and to my own customers, and their decision to try to force B2X to their merchants was kind of a shock for me, and I think for a lot of people in the community. And I suddenly realized that while Bitcoin, the protocol, is quite decentralized, we still have a problem where large part of the ecosystem is relying on very few, centralized services. So mainly exchanges and payment processor. And I think it's a step backward because the whole point of Bitcoin is to be in control of your own money. So it means that it doesn't have to be that way. It is that in my mind, it's only that way because there is not easy enough solutions in the open source world, to get around this. So that's why I started working on BTCPay. And with this, I hope that more people get self-sovereign. So like they control their own server, and the next time there is a contentious hard fork, then they are the one to decide where they go and not some centralized service provider.
Yeah, I think this was very frustrating for a lot of people. I know the few places where I actually spent Bitcoin, which mostly what I do is HODL, but there was a few places that I like to buy things, and they used BitPay previously as their processor. And when I saw this stuff going on with BitPay, I just thought, oh, what a mistake. Why are they doing this? I don't understand why they're being political about all this. I don't.
Well, there is two things why people are pissed off by BitPay. So the B2X part is one reason. There was another reason that they are pushing BIP70, which is a really bad proposal.
Correct.
For payments. But I don't like the fact that they are trying to force it to everybody else. But I understand the reason why they did that. So back when there was lots of spam and lots of transaction on the blockchain, what happened is that a customer was paying, and in BitPay, if the transaction doesn't get confirmed after 1 hour, then BitPay considered this payment void, which means that after you need to refund your customer. But when the fees are very high, then the refunding takes lots of money.
Yeah.
So I understand the reason why they did that. It's just that they should not try to push everybody to use this. I think a nice way they could have done this is to solve this is just by adding like a small option somewhere in the interface, not the default, but somewhere at least where people can click to get the address. And that's it. They are also working on a replacement of BIP70 that is JSON based. I think it's a good thing, but yeah, the problem is just them pushing it and like causing lots of trouble for merchants.
Let's say I was a merchant, or I knew a merchant who previously had, or is currently using BitPay to process their payments. And they look around, they see what's going on, and they say, I want a different option. They hear about BTCPay. What does the process look like for them to transition over to BTCPay?
Okay, so in BTCPay, I made my best to replicate the API of BitPay. The reason is that myself, I advised several people to use BitPay in the past, and it has been a problem for them. And I don't want to recode the backend part of those people's. So if I manage to have the same backend, the same API as BitPay, then people can move from BitPay to BTCPay without changing their code. So imagine that you're a merchant, you're already integrated with BitPay. There is two things that can happen. One is that you are using a plugin. So typically, for example, WooCommerce, you have a plugin on this to plug BitPay as a merchant, as a checkout option. If you do that, then BTCPay also released its own plugin. And the plugin, coding the plugin was pretty easy because I just had to fork what BitPay did, like the plugin, and like changing 2 or 3 lines of code. And that's it. There is it's quite easy. So every time that a merchant is asking me support for something that is not supported by BTCPay, I just have to fork what BitPay do and change some very few line of code, and that's it. So from the merchant perspective, if they are using a plugin, it's just a matter of changing one plugin to the other. That's it. And it's all the same UX behind it. If you're not a merchant and you are somebody that's integrated with BitPay, then most likely you won't have to change anything except the URL. Instead of pointing to BitPay, you will point to your own BTCPay server. And, but sometimes API don't allow to customize that. So you might have to fork it and just change the way to customize your own URL. But that's basically pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I think the easier you make it on merchants, because, there are merchants that are comfortable working on their own websites. They're comfortable coding or doing the development of their own stuff. But there's a lot of people out there who just say, I just want to shop. I want a WordPress with a WooCommerce plugin, and I just want to sell my hats online. I don't want to have to understand all the technical stuff.
So you're making a good point. There's several type of merchants. There's merchants. So it's something I'm trying very hard to make easy with BTCPay, that there's some kind of merchant that they don't care about crypto. They just want to add a new payment system. Okay.
Sure.
So for those people, in the design of BTCPay, I basically tried to make it easy for a third party to host it. So I like to call BTCPay the Bitpay factory, because for example, I'm tech savvy. I can easily create a BTCPay instance and open it to merchants for free or for a fee. And so some people are working on it. So there's, for example, BTCPay Now, I think, and BTCPay Jungle, and there's lots of them that will come. It's basically hosts that just provide BTCPay as a service, so merchants don't have to understand too much about crypto. So this is the first part. It works well, and but there is also merchants that like Bitcoin and want to control their own funds directly. So one thing also is that if the merchant is using a hosted BTCPay, the merchant still control his funds, because in BTCPay you for your store you set up a XPub key. So you pair it to your Trezor wallet or to your Ledger wallet or to your to a hardware wallet somehow. So the host never get any money. So the host don't need any banking license to make it work.
Ah, very cool.
So there is a bad point into this, is that people need to know what is a wallet. A merchant need to know what is a wallet, which sometimes is not very good idea. So in very soon, I think in 3 or 4 months in BTCPay, they will have a new features such that the merchant just have to open a account on some exchanges, and when they receive money on their store, it's directly forwarded to the exchanges and sold for fiat. So it will simplify it even more.
Okay, so right now, there's no way if someone said, I don't really actually want Bitcoin, I want it to immediately change over into fiat.
Yes.
Right now, as of today, that can't happen.
As of today, it cannot happen. It's planned. It's there is no technical block of doing this. We have a quite clear idea of what the UX will look like. So it will come, but still work to do on this.
There's only so many hours in the day.
Yes, exactly. So there's two ways. So there's this type of merchants. So right now, this type of merchants is still a bit hard for them because they want fiat, right? There's merchants that are not tech savvy but don't mind getting Bitcoins. In this case, they can just use BTCPay hosted by somebody else right now. And there is a merchant that believe into self-sovereignty and like controlling their own server. So in this case, I try to make it very, very easy to deploy your own BTCPay on your own server. So for example, there is a Azure, deploy to Azure button. It's basically you open an account on Microsoft Azure, then you click one button, you fill out the wizard, and it automatically creates a VM with BTCPay on it. So it's all self-hosted, your own node, everything by your own. You only have to run one command line to set up the DNS name of your server, and then it's set up automatically HTTPS and everything. So cool. Lots of merchants are using that. They are not tech savvy, and it works quite well. And
you have videos on YouTube of how to do this that they can just follow along with, correct?
Yes, correct. I need to update them because the interface changed a little bit, but they can still look at them right now and understand how it works.
I was going to ask, I'd seen the Microsoft Azure stuff repeatedly through BTCPay's documentation and things. And I was wondering why Microsoft Azure, but that you worked for Microsoft in the past. That makes a lot more sense now.
So not only I work on the Azure stack, so I'm pretty familiar with it, but there is another reason is that I didn't see any other hosting provider that provide this deploy to Azure button. So it's stupid, but it's really, from UX perspective, it's very important. You don't want to document to your user where to click in the Amazon Web Service interface, how to create a VM by themselves. Yeah. You want to make it simple. And actually this Azure button is, I didn't see any alternative to this. So that's the reason why it's using Azure. But like today on my Twitter, I sent a tweets, where I give a link on how to run exactly the same process as I'm doing on the Azure VM on your own Linux VM. So it should work fine.
Okay. So you could use it on any host then.
Yes, exactly. So the steps are quite easy. The first step is to configure your DNS record to your register to point to your VM. You have to make sure that the port 80 and 443 are open. And then you have to make sure that your VM has at least 3 GB of RAM, or 4, it's better. And then you just run a script. And what the script does behind the scene is quite easy. Just installing Docker, pulling out the Docker Compose file and running it. It's quite easy.
That's really nice. So what kind of time frame from, let's say someone has said, yes, I want to do this. Let me get started now. How long before they can start receiving payments?
Okay. So I always advise people to do it on 2 steps. First, they should try to use my website. I did is main2-btc-ltc. I will give you the link later.
Yeah, we'll post it on the website. bottomshelfbitcoin.com / I think this is episode 12, so it should be like bottomshelfbitcoin.com /12 for anybody listening. All the links will be in the show notes.
Okay, so I will give the link, but this is a BTCPay server that I'm hosting. It's not for production use, but at least people can use it to have a feeling of how BTCPay work. So it's, just registration. They can put a trash mail. I don't send any confirmation mail. So like, it's very easy to try. So if they are doing this, like, and they are using already, for example, WordPress, they just have to change the plugin. So like, at most, it would take them 30 minutes to 1 hour, something like this. Then once they became like comfortable with this, and they seems to think that BTCPay is the right solution for them, they can host their own server with like either on like what I told you with the script, or like on Azure, and just change the link to point to their own server instead of my server. That's it. So this will take maybe more 30 minutes, 1 hour more, and that's about it.
Not too long at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is only one thing that I'm trying to catch up with BitPay with is BitPay supporting lots of e-commerce processor. So right now WooCommerce is working very well. There is support for Spotify coming, but there still works to be done. It's not done by me. Every time a merchant don't find support for something, don't hesitate to contact me. I will work on forking a BitPay plugin and adapting it for BTCPay.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've been kind of lurking in the Slack channel and watching, and if anybody's listening, they can. I'll put that link in the show notes. I'm sorry, earlier I said 12. It's actually 13. Bottomshelfbitcoin.com /13. But we'll put the link in the show notes, and they can get in on that Slack channel, correct? If they want to keep an eye on things or suggest an improvement or something.
Yeah, so it's really something that is, I think, important. So BTCPay is an open source project, which means that The resource is quite constrained, and I try to focus on the code and feature as much as I can. So that's why I created this Slack. So I will give you the link later. But in this Slack, there is lots of different merchants that already had to deal with some common problems. So if merchants are coming and ask a question there is lots of chance that the community will help. So that's a good point compared, for example, to BitPay, where you have to open a ticket or send a mail to the support and wait for 24 hours and having lots of back and forth. It's a pain in the ass. Here it's nice community, so people are welcome to come.
Yeah, it is. And it's a really nice community. And there's other people. You're not the only one working on this. There's other people that are developing different parts of it.
Yeah, special thanks to Rockstar Dev. It is Sodo right now on the Slack. He got banned. I don't know for what reason or for Twitter. It's a shame. His handle was code overwhelming or something like this. He's working a lot on BTCPay on everything that is front end related, because I'm very bad in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and he's taking care of this. And special thanks to him, because lots of improvements on the UI that came is thanks to him.
Okay, so let's go back to from a merchant's perspective. Once they get this set up, one of the nice things about having one of these big centralized services like BitPay is they do invoices, et cetera, et cetera. So is there invoicing in BTCPay?
Yes. So there's a invoice interface, so you can see all your invoice that came. You can search for any address. So there's a search function, so you can retrieve all of what you want quite easily. You can, so compared to BitPay, also you don't have to pay in one transaction. You can pay in several transactions and in the same invoice with several currency. So you have a nice interface on your BTCPay server for seeing all this kind of information.
Did you say several currencies?
Yeah, you can pay, for example, in port in Bitcoin, port in Litecoin. Several other currency will follow. I think the next one will be Dogecoin. So as long as you have a server powerful enough to host these nodes, then you will be able to accept it. There is also Shapeshift integration, so you can allow your customer to pay in any shitcoin they want, and you will receive on the other side like Bitcoin or Litecoin.
That's really nice, because then, in my instance, I wouldn't want all these other altcoins, but hey, if people want to throw their money away at me, I'll take it and change it into Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why there is this Shapeshift integration. We wanted also to add Changely integration, but sadly they don't allow to set up the destination amounts. So we can't use Changely right now, but as soon as they add this feature, we will.
How are exchange rates handled? Do you use a specific service to monitor that?
Yeah, so for the exchange rates, on your store settings, the merchant decide which exchange to base in himself. I'm using behind the scene. I'm using Bitcoin Average. So Bitcoin Average is a service which has a common API for querying the rate of any exchanges that they support. There is a big list of them. However, it has a risk of if Bitcoin Average go down, then all my merchants will go down as well. So I'm also working at the same time to include direct support for querying right directly to the exchange website. And if it's not available, then fall back to coin average. So we have the best of both worlds, wide range of exchange supported. And for some few of them, we query directly the exchange itself. So if coin average go down, at least it's keep working.
Very nice, very nice. This is a great design, because you make it simple for their end, but also robust if people want to go deeper. I love it. Yeah.
So one thing I work a lot, for example, is imagine that you have two nodes, BTC and LTC, and your LTC node crash. It should not bring down the whole service, right?
Right.
So what's happening right now is like it will only propose Bitcoin if like it detects that your Litecoin node is down.
While we're talking about nodes and kind of going back, I know we're jumping around a little bit here, but because this is going to be running a node on a server, correct? Like if you spin up a BTCPay server, so how long-ish is that taking to sync to the blockchain right now?
So it's taking 2 or 3 days. However, like BTCPay is showing like nicely in the interface that your node is syncing and the progress of it.
Okay. So just for full clarity, you recommend people go onto your test site and test it out and see if they kind of understand the process. And then it's about half hour to an hour if they go through, let's say, the Azure setup.
Yes.
But then it's really in a couple of days of syncing before the payments will start coming through.
Yes, if you are hosting your own server. But like I said, you can still accept payment on the, on my test server. So like you can still use the test server and waiting for your server to catch up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great way to do that. Okay.
So one thing I want to say also, there is a good reason to host your own node. So if you are using the BTCPay server from a host, you can't use Lightning Network. The reason is that for using Lightning Network, you need to be in control of your keys. So that's why if you want to accept Lightning payment, you need to host your own node. There's no other way.
Ah, okay. I guess, yeah, that makes a big difference. So if you want to host your own, if you want to accept Lightning, you need to host your own. If you don't care so much about Lightning, which I don't know why you wouldn't, I would want to, but if you don't care about it, then I guess it's okay to go through a host. Now, I guess with this host, that's also presenting an opportunity for someone who is, technically savvy to spin up and be able to process for other people, right? That's a job opportunity right there.
So that's also, I'd like to find more people trying to do, to use it as a BitPay factory, in the sense that BTCPay code is quite easy actually to understand. If ever you want to do like BitPay, like receiving Lightning payment for your customer and paying your customer in fiat, for example, then you can do that on top of BTCPay. It's welcome. Even if in the future in BTCPay backend will provide direct integration to exchanges, so merchant can directly hedge themselves against the volatility on Bitcoin as long as they have a account on some exchange.
I think we're kind of going to be coming up to our time limit here soon, but let's talk about what's coming up in the near future. What are you working on right now, and what's the next thing you're going to be working on for it?
So there is several things. So one thing I'm working right now is that for one exchange, you can have only one, for one store, you can only have one exchange rate source. It's problematic because some altcoin, are not supported by all exchanges. So like if your exchange don't support some altcoin, your store just can't receive this altcoin.
Oh, okay.
So I'm working on a way to say, okay, if it's Dogecoin, use this exchange. If it's something else, use this exchange. So this is the next one. After, what do we have? I want to provide if then that integration, which means that if you receive a new invoice, then automatically do something, for example, tweeting. So if then that is it's a service that you can see. You can create an account on this, and the basic idea is that you can define triggers and what to do if this trigger happen. And I will do like some trigger like invoice paid, for example.
Yeah, I've used the IFTTT I used it previously. I've stopped using it now because I've changed how I'm doing my Twitter stuff, but I was having it for a while. Every time that a new episode was published, it would automatically send out the tweet. So yeah, I know what you're talking about there. That's cool.
There is also, what else? I want to support LND. So right now we are using C-Lightning as Lightning implementation. I want to add support to LND. So it's Rockstar Dev that is working on this, not me. So the midterm feature that will come that will be very important for a customer is that imagine that you are a merchant, you want to hedge yourself against the volatility of Bitcoin. One problem with Bitcoin is that when you receive the coin, before selling them, you need to wait that it get confirmed.
Right.
And once it's confirmed, you need to send it to the exchange. And then you need to wait that the exchange, it deposited onto the exchange. So 6 confirmation or so. And, then you can sell. The problem is that this time gap for volatility is quite huge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way we are thinking solving this issue is that we will ask the merchant to have an outstanding balance of BTC on an exchange. Like, for example, the merchant put 1 BTC on the exchange. And as soon as an invoice for BTC got received, like, for example, you received a 0.5 of Bitcoin or 0.4 of Bitcoin on your an invoice, as soon as you receive this, automatically you will sell on the exchange an equivalent amount.
Oh, very cool.
And then what will happen is that once this money got confirmed, then it's sent to the exchanges. And then when it reaches the exchanges, then you are back to 1 Bitcoin.
Right. Okay.
You see? So by doing this, it means that the merchant will have a way to hedge themselves against the volatility on Bitcoin just by keeping some fixed reserve on their exchange account, basically.
Very nice. I like it.
So in a way, so the nice thing about BTCPay is that all services related to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency until now assumed only 2 models. The model where it's hosted by somebody else, and the model where you are using a loosely connected wallet. Like once a day, like for example your phone. But the thing is that if you can assume that you have a server that have full connectivity to the network and stay connected long time, then you can unlock lots of potential for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is programmable money, which means that if you have full connectivity, it means that you can receive money and do something else directly with this money. For example, paying something directly another service automatically. And so I want, in the long term, I want BTCPay to be less something for merchants, even if merchants are always our first goal, but a bit less for merchants, and more like a self-hosted wallet that is always connected.
Oh.
So, for example, right now, directly from BTCPay, you can send money from your ledger. So if you are a Ledger NOS, you pair it to your store, and directly from the BTCPay interface, you can send money of this ledger directly. No need of the Ledger app.
Oh, okay.
I want to do the same for Lightning. So it means that BTCPay ultimately will be a Lightning wallet as well. So that's basically the vision that I'm seeing in the middle long term, moving it to your self-hosted server for everything that is crypto related, not only for merchants.
Man, you've got a lot going on there. I can't imagine. Do you have a list or a whiteboard somewhere that's just full?
We have we are tracking everything with issues inside our GitHub.
Yeah.
So every time you see something quite off or a bug or something that can be improved, just put an issue there. It's how we track stuff.
Very cool. Okay, so and then if somebody wanted to either support this project or contribute code,
That's a good question. Actually, I made lots of work on BTCPay to make it easy to people to contribute. So if you're one thing with BTCPay is that it depends on lots of stuff. So like you have your full node, you have Lightning node, you have a block explorer, you have lots of stuff, right? So for developer, I made a Docker Compose file, which means that with one command line, you set up like all dependency and you are ready to dev. And then with any, you don't have to be on Windows for developing. You can be on Mac. You can be on whatever you want. You can code in VI if you want. You can easily compile and debug by yourself. It's easy to get started. So if you want to contribute by coding, just go in the repo and look the documentation. I made it quite easy. If it doesn't work, you can just come in the Slack and we'll guide you. But there is not only this. If you want to contribute, for example, if you are a merchant, you can contribute just by saying, this particular feature in BTCPay is confusing. Can you change it that way? And then we'll listen. Or like doing like Bitcoin chart, like writing guide for other merchants, or like just hanging around on the Slack and responding to questions of people that is coming. There's lots of way of contributing.
Well, very cool. So we've got the Slack channel. You've got a Twitter account for BTCPay, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll put the links to all that in the show notes. And anything else you want to plug or anything else you want to make sure the audience knows before we have to say goodbye?
Well, I think we've seen everything. I just hope that more people are starting to be self-sovereign. Not only it's good for my privacy when people are not relying on centralized parties, but it's also good for them. And as a whole, it will make Bitcoin more resilient to future attacks that will definitely come. So just give it a try. It's fun, right? There's new feature every day. So it's, even if you're not a merchant, try BTCPay, you will have fun.
Yeah. And that's no exaggeration, people, because literally come to the Slack and you will see there truly is new features every single day. They're pushing out new updates.
I have fast release process. Basically, when I back a new feature, I release it immediately. And so if you are self-hosting yourself, there is a script that is called BTCPay update.sh. And so you can update quite easily. It's so that's why I'm doing lots of new feature and releasing them every time.
Easy to set up, easy to update, everything you've. How can people even complain? Anyway, there are
merchants always find something, but that's good. It makes BTCPay better.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot.
All right, bottom shelfers, that's all for our show today. One thing we didn't get to in the interview that Nicolas wanted to make sure I mentioned is that if you're using BTCPay Server, you can fully customize your invoices with CSS the same way you would any other website. After we recorded that interview, I went and set up my own tipping page using Nicolas' test server, so I'm going to put that link in the show notes as well as on my donate page. That way, it's a little easier for those of you that don't have Paynim enabled wallets to still, tip and donate to the show with Bitcoin. Remember, if you want to support the show with fiat, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/bottomshelfbitcoin, or you can go to bottomshelfbitcoin.com/kidsbook and support the show by buying Tuttle Twins books. Honestly, you should buy the Tuttle Twins books anyway, and so if you're going to do it anyway, you might as well use my link and help the show while you're doing it. Remember to follow me on Twitter at BottomshelfBTC. That's the easiest way to reach me if you have suggestions for someone you want me to get on the show or good resources that you think I should share. If you like the show, share it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever other social media you use. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever podcast player you use so you don't miss a single episode. And you're going to want to come back next week because we are going to be talking about internet censorship. Now, it's not totally all directly related to Bitcoin, but obviously this has implications for Bitcoin. That's kind of the point. That's why we decentralize, right? So anyway, tune in. You are not going to want to miss that episode. For Bottom Shelf Bitcoin, I'm Josh Humphrey. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, share it on Twitter or Facebook or what blah, 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 blah.